The Georgia heat was suffocating as I stood on the front porch of my childhood home in Columbus, my Army duffel bag slung over my shoulder. The house looked smaller than I remembered, the paint peeling, the lawn overgrown, the American flag my grandfather had hung years ago now faded and torn. Through the screen door, I could hear the television blaring, the same news anchor my father had been watching for the past decade. "Dad, I'm home," I called out, pushing through the door. The familiar smell of stale beer and cigarettes hit me like a wall. 3 years of military discipline had made me forget how suffocating this place could be. Thomas Mitchell looked up from his recliner, his bloodshot eyes taking in my crisp CU uniform. At 58, he was a shadow of the man I remembered from childhood, his gut hanging over his belt, his face bloated from years of drinking, his once strong hands now trembling slightly as he reached for his beer. Well, he slurred, his voice dripping with the familiar contempt I'd hoped military service might have erased. "Look what the cat dragged in. The big shot soldier boy." I set my bag down carefully, maintaining the discipline that had been drilled into me at Fort Benning. "Hello, Dad. I'm on leave for 2 weeks. Thought I'd come see how you're doing." He let out a bitter laugh, the sound echoing in the cramped living room. How I'm doing is I've been managing just fine without my ungrateful son who abandoned his family for some government brainwashing program." The words hit me like they always did, but 3 years of military training had taught me to control my reactions. "I didn't abandon anyone, Dad. I joined the Army to serve my country and build a better life." "Build a better life?" He struggled to his feet, swaying slightly. "You had a job at the factory lined up. Good, honest work. But no, you had to go play soldier boy instead of taking care of your responsibilities here." I remember that fight like it was yesterday. I was 18, fresh out of high school, and my father had already arranged for me to work at the textile factory where he'd spent the last 30 years of his life. The same factory that had slowly killed his spirit, that had turned him into the bitter, angry man standing before me. "Dad, I'm a staff sergeant now. I've been deployed twice, served in Afghanistan. I'm making good money, and I don't want to hear it." He cut me off, his voice rising. "You think you're better than me now? Think you're some kind of hero because you put on a uniform?" The irony wasn't lost on me. My grandfather, his father, had been a World War II veteran who died when I was 12. He'd been the one to tell me stories about honor, duty, and serving something bigger than yourself. He'd been the one who'd encouraged me to consider military service when my grades weren't good enough for college. "I'm not trying to be better than anyone, Dad. I'm trying to make something of myself." "Make something of yourself?" He laughed again, but there was no humor in it. "You made something of yourself, all right. You made yourself a stranger. You made yourself someone who thinks he's too good for his own family." I looked around the living room, taking in the empty beer cans, the overflowing ashtrays, the bills scattered across the coffee table. "Dad, when's the last time you left this house? When's the last time you looked for work?" His face darkened. "Don't you dare lecture me, boy. I worked my ass off to put food on the table when you were growing up. I don't need some punk kid telling me how to live my life." "I'm not a punk kid anymore, Dad. I'm 21 years old, and I'm a non-commissioned officer in the United States Army. I've led men in combat. Get out." His voice was quiet now, but deadly serious. "What?" I said, "Get out. Take your fancy uniform and your military pride and get the hell out of my house." I stared at him, hoping to see some flicker of the father I remembered from childhood, the man who'd taught me to throw a baseball, who'd read me bedtime stories, who'd cried at my grandfather's funeral. But all I saw was a broken man consumed by his own failures and resentment. "Dad, please. I'm your son. My son died the day he chose the Army over his family." He turned his back on me, reaching for another beer. "Now get out before I call the police." I picked up my duffel bag with shaking hands, my military composure finally cracking. "Fine, but don't expect me to come back." "Good. I don't want you back." Those were the last words my father spoke to me as I walked out of that house 3 years ago. I tried calling a few times in the first year, but he'd hang up as soon as he heard my voice. Eventually, I stopped trying. Now, as I sat in my barracks room at Fort Stewart, staring at the phone that had just woken me from a dead sleep, I wondered if I was dreaming. The caller ID showed Columbus Regional Medical Center. "Sergeant Mitchell?" This is Dr. Sarah Chun at Columbus Regional. I'm calling about your father, Thomas Mitchell. You're listed as his emergency contact. My heart raced. Is he okay? What happened? He's in the ICU, Sergeant. He had a massive heart attack this morning. We've stabilized him, but his condition is critical. The next 48 hours will be crucial. I was already reaching for my uniform, my mind shifting into crisis mode. I'll be there as soon as I can. Can you tell me, is he conscious? He's sedated right now, but he was awake when they brought him in. Sergeant, there's something else. Your father, he's been asking for you. He keeps saying he needs to talk to his son. The words hit me harder than any enemy fire I'd faced in Afghanistan. After 3 years of silence, 3 years of being told I was dead to him, my father was asking for me. I'll be there tonight, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos in my chest. Please tell him I'm coming. As I hung up the phone, I caught my reflection in the mirror across the room. The young, uncertain boy who'd left Columbus was gone. In his place stood a soldier, scarred, hardened, but still carrying the weight of a son's love for his father. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. It was time to face the man who'd disowned me, not as the broken teenager who'd left, but as the soldier I'd become. The drive to Columbus would take 4 hours. 4 hours to prepare for a conversation that was 3 years overdue. The Columbus Regional Medical Center loomed against the night sky like a fortress of white light and antiseptic hope. I'd driven straight through from Fort Stewart, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles had gone white. The 4-hour drive had given me too much time to think, too much time to remember the last words we'd spoken to each other. The ICU was a maze of beeping machines and hushed voices. I found Dr. Chun at the nurse's station, a small Asian woman with kind eyes and the tired expression of someone who delivered too much bad news. Sergeant Mitchell, she looked up from her charts. Thank you for coming so quickly. Your father's condition has stabilized, but it's still touch and go. Can I see him? She hesitated. He's awake now, but sedated. The heart attack was severe. He's going to need surgery. And even then, she didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. Room 314 was dimly lit, filled with the steady rhythm of machines keeping my father alive. He looked smaller than I remembered, his skin pale and waxy, his once powerful frame reduced to something fragile and breakable. An oxygen mask covered his face, and IVs snaked from his arms to bags of fluid hanging beside the bed. He sensed my presence before I spoke. His eyes opened slowly, focusing on my uniform with the same mixture of recognition and conflict I remembered from 3 years ago. Tommy, his voice was weak, muffled by the oxygen mask, but it was him. Yeah, Dad, it's me. I pulled a chair close to the bed, unsure of what to say. How are you feeling? He tried to laugh, but it came out as a wheeze, like I got hit by a truck. His eyes studied my face, taking in the changes 3 years had brought. You look good, son. You look strong. The word son hit me like a physical blow. I'd forgotten what it felt like to hear him say it without venom. Dad, what happened? The doctor said you had a heart attack at home. He closed his eyes, and for a moment I thought he'd fallen asleep. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I was trying to fix the roof. That leak in the kitchen finally got too bad to ignore. I climbed up there and next thing I knew, I was in the ambulance. You were trying to fix the roof yourself? Dad, you're 58 years old and you haven't worked construction in. I know. He opened his eyes, looking directly at me. I know exactly how old I am, and I know exactly how pathetic I've become. The honesty in his voice caught me off guard. This wasn't the defensive, angry man I'd left behind. Dad, you're not pathetic. You're sick. You need help. I need more than help, Tommy. He struggled with the words. I need to tell you something about why I was so angry when you joined the Army. I leaned forward, my heart pounding. Your grandfather, he continued, his voice getting stronger. My dad, he used to tell me stories about the war, about being a hero, about serving his country. Made it sound like the most important thing a man could do. He was a hero, Dad. He fought in the Pacific. He was a drunk. The words came out flat, emotionless. He came back from a war broken, son. Broken in ways that nobody talked about back then. He drank to forget what he'd seen, what he'd done. And when he drank, he got mean. I felt the foundation of my childhood shifting beneath me. Dad, I don't understand. Grandpa was. Your grandfather was a good man who came back from war damaged. But he never got help. Never admitted he had a problem. Just drank and told stories about the glory days while his family fell apart around him. Thomas reached up with a trembling hand and pulled the oxygen mask away from his face. When you said you wanted to join the army, all I could think about was history repeating itself. I thought the military would break you like it broke him. I thought you'd come back angry and bitter and lost. The room fell silent except for the steady beep of the heart monitor. I stared at my father, seeing him clearly for the first time in years. So you try to break me first, I said quietly. I try to save you. His voice cracked. I try to keep you close, keep you safe. But all I did was push you away and prove that I was the one who was broken. I felt tears I hadn't shed since basic training burning behind my eyes. Dad, why didn't you tell me this before? Why didn't you explain? Because I was proud. Because I was scared. Because I was a coward. He replaced the oxygen mask, breathing deeply before continuing. I've been watching the news, watching stories about soldiers coming home, about the good they do over there. I've been thinking about you every day for 3 years, wondering if you were okay, if you were coming home. I tried to call Dad. You hung up on me. I know. I was too ashamed to talk to you. Too ashamed to admit I was wrong. Dr. Chen appeared in the doorway, her expression grave. Sergeant Mitchell, could I speak with you for a moment? I followed her into the hallway, my heart sinking at her serious expression. Your father's condition is more serious than we initially thought, she said gently. The heart attack caused significant damage. He's going to need immediate surgery, and even then, the recovery will be long and expensive. Do you know if he has insurance? I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. I don't know. He was unemployed when I left. What kind of costs are we talking about? The surgery alone will be around $60,000. Recovery, rehabilitation, medications, we're looking at close to $100,000, maybe more. The number hit me like a physical blow. My military salary was decent, but I wasn't rich. I had some savings, but nothing close to what she was describing. Doctor, what happens if we can't pay? We'll do the surgery regardless. We have to. But afterward, she didn't finish the sentence. I walked back into the room, my mind racing. My father's eyes were closed, but I could tell he was awake. Dad, did you hear what the doctor said? He nodded slowly. I heard. Tommy, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. His eyes opened wide. Son, you don't understand. I don't have insurance. I don't have anything. I've been living on unemployment and disability, and that ran out months ago. I can't pay you back. I sat down beside the bed, taking his hand in mine. It was cold and fragile, nothing like the strong hands I remembered from childhood. I don't want you to pay me back, Dad. I want you to get better. I want you to be around so we can figure out how to be father and son again. He squeezed my hand weakly. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you. Maybe not. But you're still my father, and I'm still your son. That has to count for something. The money, Tommy. It's so much money. Your future, your savings, will mean nothing if I lose you before we have a chance to fix this. He closed his eyes, tears leaking from the corners. I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry for everything. I know, Dad. I know. Dr. Chun returned with consent forms and financial paperwork. As I signed document after document, authorizing procedures and accepting financial responsibility, I thought about the choice I was making. This money represented years of discipline, years of military savings, years of planning for my own future. But looking at my father, broken and afraid in that hospital bed, I realized that some things were worth more than money. Some things were worth more than pride. The surgery is scheduled for tomorrow morning, Dr. Chen said. The recovery will be long, but if everything goes well, he should be able to go home in a few weeks. Home? I looked at my father. Dad, you can't go back to that house alone. Not after this. I'll be fine, Tommy. I don't want to be a burden. You're not a burden. You're my father. I made a decision that surprised even me. I'm putting in for a transfer to Fort Benning. It's only an hour away. You can come live with me while you recover. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling you. That's what families do, Dad. They take care of each other. For the first time in 3 years, I saw my father smile. It was weak, tired, but genuine. I love you, son. I should have said that 3 years ago. I love you too, Dad. We're going to get through this. As I sat in that hospital room, watching my father fight for his life, I realized that sometimes the greatest battles aren't fought on foreign soil. Sometimes they're fought in hospital rooms, in family conversations, in the choice to forgive and move forward. The Army had taught me about honor, duty, and sacrifice. But it was my father, lying broken in that hospital bed, who taught me about the true meaning of family. 3 years ago, he'd kicked me out for joining the Army. Now, the Army had given me the strength and resources to save his life. Sometimes, life has a way of bringing things full circle. The surgery was scheduled for 0800 hours. I would be there, not as a soldier, but as a son.